filmmakers. My name is David Schroeder, and I'm here to talk to you as a fellow filmmaker and advice and what my experience will tell me. I was interested in Jeff's discussion of distribution. I fall in the lot that I suspect many of you are. I want to be the artist. I want to write. I want to produce, get my work produced. The other work, I know it's part of the equation that's necessary. And so how does an artist find his way to that distribution deal that Jeff was talking about? Okay? You want to sign in on the chats? Oh, looks like we have about 10 people here. Can you raise your hand or put something in the chat box to make sure that you can hear me? Anyone in the chat? Any participants? Yeah. Okay, James, I see your message there. All right, so I'm a screenwriter and I produced a film, and I suspect that unlike you, if I was introducing myself, on the best foot possible, I would say that, I produced a film called This Modern Man is Beat. It's 15 minutes long, and we released it in 2016. Everyone told me it was your first film. Don't have any expectations for it. Well, it far exceeded expectations. It far exceeded. That we premiered at Rain Dance in London. We won the Grand Jury Award in Saint-Tropez. We premiered in Los Angeles at the Chinese Grumman Theater. And have been premiered in 20 countries. And we've won 110 Best Awards. And so it seems to be a success. The first thing I'll say is that when I went to other presentations and film festivals, the word that I heard over and over was how lucky I am. Oh, you are so lucky that you've done so well, and you're so lucky. It's your first film. You're lucky. Well, I'm going to tell you that I'm not a lucky person. I'm not a lucky person. When I was 18, I became disabled. I've been in a wheelchair for 50 years. In 1992, my bad luck was I bought a new house in Country Walk in Miami, which got hit directly by Hurricane Andrew. 220 knots of wind, my house was gone. My brand new car, a week old, was totally destroyed. And if that wasn't bad enough luck, in 2012, I got run over in a parking lot. I got hit by a woman driving while she was texting, and I went over the roof of the car, spent a couple of months in the hospital. So when people say I'm lucky, my reaction is like, what are you talking about? However, I will say I'm a very fortunate person. And I think that's what we all have to strive for. Fortune, I'll say that luck is done, but fortune is earned. You're fortunate because of your hard work. I wasn't an overnight success. I've been, the idea of being a filmmaker is really an afterthought of a retirement career. So I brought a lot of experience to the idea that I've been a professor. I'm still a professor at Miami-Dade College now, and I've been teaching either at the University of Miami or there for 44 years. So filmmaking was new to me, but the idea of storytelling and writing and experience was there, and that's all hard earned. But I made one film. You've made one film. You know, you're there because you're a screenwriter, or you've at least made one film or more than one film. So, you know, the advice I've taken is probably what you've heard, and I'll tell you what I have done and what I've discovered that I think that will get me to the next level. But first, I will say, try to surround yourself with the best people you can. And that's what my good fortune has been. My part of my good fortune was earned. I studied with the Nobel Prize winner, Isaac Bashevis Singer, in 1980. He won the Nobel Prize, and then shortly after that, I was one of his 5 students, and I spent a year with him. You know, I didn't really, I did it for resume, honestly, but he was a really great man, and it really shaped much of what I've done. I've had many good teachers, a couple Academy Award winners, but one of my favorite teachers, mentors, was Kurt Vonnegut. I don't know if any of you are fans of Kurt Vonnegut, but when I was a freshman in college, 1971, I read Kurt Vonnegut. I read everything that Kurt Vonnegut wrote, and I loved it. And then in 1984, Kurt Vonnegut was a guest speaker at our college, and I was the one who introduced him, wrote his introduction. And I spent 3 days with Kurt Vonnegut. And I'll tell you, I'll tell you a little idea that I got from him that I suspect you've never heard from any other storyteller. But you can start this discussion by, if you go to YouTube, there are many links of what you look up Kurt Vonnegut, the shape of story, the shape of story. And it's very similar to the lecture that he had presented, one of the lectures he had presented to my students. And he starts with, you know, he draws. He says he was a math science major. And then he fell ill. And when he recovered, he said he decided to become a science fiction writer because it all got mixed up in his head. So when he writes, he would go back to his math skills and he would draw an X and Y scale. And he would call the horizontal scale the time scale, the way the story is told, beginning, middle to end. And the vertical scale was the value scale, what he called the good, bad scale. And he would make these designs, like his first story is the good, bad, good story, which the story starts very good, and then we have problems, and we go down till we get to the bottom, and then we have a turning point, and then things are very good. The man in the ditch story, he calls it. I call it the good, bad, good story. It's the story of Star Wars. You know, Star Wars in the New Hope. The rebel forces defeat the Empire. But in the second movie, Princess Leia is captured. Han Solo is frozen to a block of carbon. Luke Skywalker has his hand cut off. Right. So now we got the rebel forces are in a ditch, and then we have the Jedi return, and Luke has a new hand. They rescue Han Solo. They rescue Princess Leia, and they fight the Death Star a second time, and they win, and they live happily ever after in the forest with the Ewoks. If it starts good, goes bad, then good. It's a very predictable story. So he talks about the shape of it. So you can watch that. He does a lot of X and Y scales. Let me assure you, this is not original. Kurt Vonnegut seems to be original, but it's really the ideas of E.M. Forster in aspects of the novel. You don't have to read aspects of the novel, but I have. And the first half of aspects of the novel is plot and the order and arrangement of events, plot, beginning, middle, and end. And the second half of aspects of the novel is about character. Characters give value. So I wanted to do whiteboards. Like what I would do is I draw these as we're discussing. So we get these shapes of stories in, but it goes further. When I met Kurt Vonnegut, I said, you know, Mr. Vonnegut, you know, in your story, Slaughterhouse-Five, you claimed that when you wrote it, you used wallpaper and you rolled it out on the floor, and you would lay on the floor and you drew the whole plot with crayons. Is that true? And he said, yes, it is. He says, I enjoy working with crayons. I said, well, I did my first novel and I did the same thing. I wrote a novel according to the demands of my department. And the first 6 months, I had 1,200 pages, and they said, what's it about? And I had no idea what my story was about. So I was a wise guy, and I said, I used a Bob Dylan line. They said, that's Bob Dylan, what's your music about? And he goes, well, some of my songs are about 3 or 4 minutes long. Some are about 5 to 6 minutes long. And one song, the Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowland, is about 15 minutes long. So I told them, they said, what's my novel about? I said, it's about 1,200 pages long. And they said, Schroeder, get the hell out of here. Come back when you can tell us what your novel's about in one sentence. So I decided I didn't use wallpaper. I used computer paper. We used to have dot matrix, and paper was all on one big ream. And I had it taped all around my room on 3 sides. So as I sat there, I had this line on it. And as I looked around, I had every chapter plotted out. And then I created kind of a rainbow that when I started my story at sunrise, so I ended at sunset. I started my story, the first day of the tourist season in Key West and Mallory Square. So that I knew my last chapter had to be the last day of the tourist season, Memorial Day, and at sunset at Mallory Square. So then I went with that theme. When I worked on chapter 2, I would work on the second to last chapter. When I would work on chapter 3, my hero goes to jail. The third to last chapter is after he's been to jail many times. So I had 16 chapters and I had a midpoint. I had this rainbow, all these arcs. I started interpreting like literally what story arc is. Anyway, that's how I did it. And the English department asked me, Schroeder knows how to put a novel together. How did you do it? And I said, I did it the way you told me. I made it outline. I lied. Because if I told them that I was drawing pictures, they would just think that's, you're a child. What are you doing? But Kurt Vonnegut said, it's okay, be a child. So I started drawing the shapes of stories. When I did my short film, I really, there's other shapes. One of the popular shapes, I studied with Dave Brubeck. And Dave Brubeck, the musician, and he was talking about, we talked about ideas, and he would say, well, songs, there's only like 3 or 4 forms for a popular song. So what do you mean? And he said, well, there's A, that's the simplest. You do it and do it again and again and again. Or you do A, B, A, that's another form. Or you can do what I discovered I like the arc form. A, B, C, B, A. So you have an arc. I like that. So music, they do that. It wasn't my invention. So I started studying other forms in different arts, So when I did This Modern Man Is Beat, I really just I have 3 sets. And so you can imagine how you do it in production. You don't do it chronologically, you do the three locations. So I have A and B. I start in a motel room, we go to a pawn shop. We go back to the motel room, go to the pawn shop. A, B, A, B. Simple story form. So I'm not using Sid Field. I'm not using, the 3-act play, which I do many variations on that. But in a short story, it's hard to do. It's very difficult to do a 3-act structure in a short film. And if you're trying to do it, it's too much, For sure, I had 2 locations, and that was a lot to manage. But then I also intercut. I had some flashback scenes that were shot in the past in a park. So I really had, slice of C, and then I had A, and then a slice of C, and then I went to B, and a slice of C, and I went back to, A and B. So I would intersect each A and B with some intercuts would use, but I would make a drawing of it, and I would make these slices, and so I would draw it out and try to make it look good as a picture. So I don't know, as storytellers, if you think about that, but other than Kurt Vonnegut, no one really talked about the shape of story, and that architecture has shapes. In literature, we always talk about architectonics. Well, we talk about the shapes of architecture and how you can use it in literature. The music, I studied, I'm dangerous, I know a little bit of music composition. Music composition, there's so many different shapes and forms, and you can use it for shaping your story. So I'm a great corrupter of different ideas. I like to look at things differently, but I can't really share that with, academic people. They think, that's not the way you do it. We got to do Sid Field. You got to have Act 1. You have to have a plot point 1, and you got to have Act 2, and you got to have plot point 2 and Act 3. Right? I don't know how many of you feel a little bit frustrated. It's too much like an essay. It's too much like an essay, beginning, middle, and end. But anyway, I hope that's an interesting idea for you. Look up Kurt Vonnegut's lecture on the shape of stories. But I use lots of shapes, and I use the shape of musical scales. I don't know if any of you are musicians, but if you do, and you know the shape of a scale, then you know how James Joyce writes. He uses musical modalities. So, whether it's a major scale or a minor scale, there's a little bit, the half step is in a different location, and it gives a whole different feel. It's the same thing as like moving your plot points earlier in the story or later in Act 1. There's no specific rule unless you're just playing with musical scales and you only do major scales, and you have to have your plot point at page 25 to 27, like Sid Field says. No, you do. No, you don't. So, but it should be some kind of a shape that makes sense. It makes sense. Anyone like to make a comment or a question about that? Yes, Joanne, it's okay to ask questions. For new writers, I'll tell you, I think it's all right. You want to accept, have some common sense, but also don't be afraid to be a corrupter or one who perverts. As Vonnegut taught me, it's okay. It was okay for artists to work with crayons and draw pictures of a novel. I think it's okay. But do I admit it? Only to my students. But to my colleagues or to professionals, they'll say, how do you do that? And I'll just say, I don't know. I guess I just know how to do it. Okay? So as a new writer, read a lot and watch a lot of movies, of course. I think it's interesting. I think the key word, Joanne, is the word study. You know, Quentin Tarantino says that when he says in film school, they want you to watch hundreds of movies. And Tarantino says, no, I watch 2 or 3 movies hundreds of times. And you can see that. He really knows his genre. He really knows his genre, right? He knows what he's doing, and he knows it inside and out. But you know, but he sticks within a genre always. So I think it's okay. You know, people always talk about being in the box and out of the box. My students all want to write out of the box, but you don't know. You can't write out of the box unless you know what's inside the box. You have to study. You have to know what those accepted beliefs are. So it's difficult, Joanna. It's a good question. Another answer I would have for you, Joanna, is, you know, my academic students, you know, you write about what you know. You write about what you know. But my creative writing students, I use the advice of Alan Ball. Alan Ball wrote American Beauty. He did 6 Feet Under. Right? He did True Blood. And he said, don't write about what you know. Write about what you feel. Interesting idea. The creative writers write about what you feel. So I have mentored for 5 years students in the animation school in Miami, the Magic program. And so a lot of the kids are only 16 years old. You know, they can draw like no one's business. They really can draw, but they can't tell a story. So you tell them, write about what you feel. So they don't even really know the words for what they're feeling. So they would say, Professor, I want to write something awesome. Okay. So I said, and then they start telling me what they're going to write about. I said, that's not awesome. Choose an emotion and then look it up. What they're doing, you know, they want to, the girls want to write awesome stories about butterflies and flowers and unicorns. That's not awesome. That's wonderful. The opposite of wonder is awesome. They both appeal to our imagination, but awe has an element of fear. Dinosaurs are awesome. Sharks are awesome. Butterflies are wonderful. Flowers are wonderful. They bring joy. So once they choose an emotion, then you have to study what the opposite is. If you want to write about misery or despair, let's say despair. I want to write a story, a really dark story about despair. Well, then you have to have the opposite in the story, which is hope. Hope and despair. And it's a push me, pull me. And so you have to know the opposite of what you mean. You know, so emotions are like colors. There's an opposite on the color wheel. Look up on the internet emotions, choose one, study it, and then look for this emotional wheel. So it shows you the opposite of it. Now you have conflict resolution, conflict, complication, resolution. You have to have opposites. So that would be another advice. I'd say, know what you feel, and you feel deeply. So Alan Ball would say that, you know, he said, I wrote American Beauty, he said, and what do I know about the life in the suburbs? What do I know about an average married man's life? What do I know? He said, I'm from New York City and I'm gay and I don't know anything about Kevin Spacey's life in American Beauty. But I wrote about what I felt. and the rest of it follows. Is that helpful? And you're asking a question about converting a short into a feature. Okay, that's where I want to go with this. I'm assuming many people have done this. I'll tell you what my experiences have been. Now, I've written a number of award-winning screenplays, features. I've won 66 Best Awards, for 7 different features I've done. But I hadn't got anything produced. And one of my mentors said, well, you got to make a short. And I was taking this class with Tom Muska. Tom Muska won the Academy Awards for, he wrote Stand and Deliver. Stand and Deliver. So that was Tom's big success 25 years ago. He hasn't really done this, but he had a great, sophomore project. So he told me, he said, David, I know you can write, but in Hollywood, you have to be able to rewrite other people's stuff. He basically told me, you have to learn to polish shit. That's what he told me. And he goes, so the assignment was, albeit I'm a professor, I take classes for free at the university. So I'm always studying there. And so he said, we had to go to the classroom and take another student's idea and polish it, make it into a screenplay with the idea of producing it. I didn't really want to do that. But okay, so I did it. So I took a student idea that was, it was 1.5 pages long. I made it into a 20-page short script. It won 14 international awards for screenplays. The short story never became anything, right? But I agreed with the student that he got story rights when he made the movie. He got based on the short story by. And so we made Modern Man, and Modern Man was much more successful than anyone thought. Even Tom Muska thought it was the most beautiful short film that any of his students at the university had produced. And he wasn't surprised with all the success. Now, they always will tell you that you should have contracts before you even make a short. But I thought, my agreement with this student was, I'll give you a story credit. He didn't do anything. He didn't raise any money. He wasn't on set. I changed, in the adaptation, I slowly whittled away at the story until it became more and more a different story. But that's what happened. So it won all these awards. And so a lot of people said, well, you've already exceeded the hopes for a first-time filmmaker. But I said, I want more. I'm like you, I want more. What happened was, as a result of the short film, our director, he's gotten 6 feature deals with Mar Vista since, based on this Modern Man's beat. So working with Mar Vista, he's working like $1 million budget, TV movies. Alex's work has appeared on Netflix, on Lifetime, Sci-Fi Channel, and so forth. So, and my lead actor got a 2-feature deal, and he's a regular on TV now on the soap operas. And he's doing very well. As I know, Jordy, he's married, he's got children, and they live in Malibu, and he's got a regular job, and life is good. And I'll say, come on. Oh, and my director of photography that I brought in, he got a feature deal. He does a lot of commercial work, but he got a feature deal as well. And I said, come on, guys, bring me on. And they always do speak for me. Well, now, Anna, you asked the question, am I going to make it a feature? So now, after Alex made 5 movies with Mar Vista. They wanted This Modern Man Is Beat. They wanted that story. So before we did anything, I had to go back to that student whose the movie was based on his 1.5 page short story. And I said, we need to have a contract now. What's our agreement? He said, I get story credit. Yes, that's right. So I said, we need to have an agreement before we can go forward. And he said, well, I want $1 million. I said, you're not going to get $1 million. That's the entire budget. You out of your mind? So he said, well, what should I get? And I said, well, I agreed to give you story credits by. And so I offered him the story by credit, which, if you look it up on Union, is worth 12.5% of the writing budget. So we're saying $1 million. The proposal was maybe $100,000 budget. So I told him, I said, so he goes, what's that mean? I'm going to get 100,000? No, you get 12%. If you were in the union, I'll agree that I'll split at 12%. I have to write the 100-page screenplay, and I've done all the heavy lifting. I did all the producing and raised all the money and so on. He said no, and he got a lawyer, and the lawyer told me I couldn't talk to his client unless I paid him thousands of dollars first. But I had to pay him to go on negotiation. That was going to happen. That he wanted 50% of all the writing budget. He wanted control, all editorial control of the movie, which, of course, we know that the man with the gun, the man with the money is the man with the gun. And he does that. And he wanted all the merchandising rights. And the final straw was he wanted to control how big his name would be in the credits. And I said, well, you need to get a bigger TV. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, the union controls how large your name appears in credits. You know, we don't have any control over that. So he said he made all these demands, and I said no. So it was an impasse. We can't go forward. So basically, what I realized, so there was a bad taste, and the kid sent his demands to California. And when Mar Vista got a hold of that, the deal was toxic. He said, these are amateurs. Who's making these demands? Like, you can't tell us what to do, and goodbye. So beware. I made one of those cardinal sins. When you make a film, you should have written agreement with everyone before you enter into it. Because what happens if it does? Everyone said, it will be successful. Don't worry about it. That's the first bit of advice. Be cautious. Now, Anna, what your question is, though, I've tried everything to get the big deal. You know, my goal is, my exit plan is to leave teaching, but I feel compelled that I want to be engaged in something creative. And so if I got a movie deal, a legit one, got that in, I knew I could get a second one, then I'm going to retire. Okay, and I'll spend all my time doing that. But hold on a second. Excuse me. Okay, I'm back on. James, is the TV background better? The background noise? Better, okay. Let's go back to the question about the, so the big challenge was I've done everything, almost everything that people have said. You have a script, Okay, it's award winning. How do you get in front of studios? When I go to film festivals, when I go to Los Angeles, you know, I do something that other screenwriters aren't doing. Every day they said, David, do you want to have lunch with us? I say, no, I'm having lunch with Dimension Films. Oh, tomorrow, no, I'm going to Warner Brothers. Oh, I'm going to the Gersh agency for lunch. Every day I'd have an appointment set up. And the reason was I didn't make cold calls. I wrote query letters. I would, let's say, if I'm going to be there for a week, the last time I went, I wrote 36 letters and I got 5 invitations. And I got into all those. You can't get into Warner Brothers and then you got to go through a police record and it takes 3 days to do that. You can't just show up. You can't show up. So I did that. I remember at Dimension Films, they said, we like this. What else you got? He said, what do you mean? They said, never come into the room without 3 scripts. I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, suppose we like it, but we got something like that in production. What else do you got? Well, then I got a coming of age story. Well, we don't do coming of age. What else do you got? When I went to Warner Brothers, I had three scripts. They said, no, we don't do that. We got something like that. No, they said, no. Do you got anything else? And on the spot, I made up an idea. I have Die Hard at Sea. I said, what do you mean? And they said, we're interested. I had nothing. I was writing for the Port Authority of New York for a bunch of salvagers. And when I was in LA, I was staying across the street from that original Die Hard movie building, that black office building. I think it's near Culver City. Is that right, James? And so those 2 ideas, I said, Die Hard at Sea. They go, you got that story? I said, no, I just made it up on the spot. I said, we love it. Write it, come back to us. So I did write. It didn't fly, but yeah. So I was trying to get the Fox Plaza. That's how I used to get home every day, to follow that building. So I did that. I got 6, 7 scripts. I have a coming of age. They said, can you write action adventure? I did action adventure. Can you write comedy? I wrote a slapstick comedy. And I did it because I had a friend in all the Farrelly Brother movies. And I was hoping my friend Danny would get in front of Peter Farrelly. But my friend died of cancer before that. My friend Danny Murphy he was also in a wheelchair. He's the guy in the wheelchair in all the Farrelly Brother movies. But that plan didn't work. And then, of course, they said, make a movie. Now, I've tried all these other plans, and I think making the movie might have the greatest currency. Although I don't want to go back and write that story because it's toxic. But my directors made money, my lead actors made money, my director of photography all got feature deals. And they're telling me if I can do it. And what I'm learning is now Mar Vista is with Paramount. And my directors tell me, write it. But they like the tax incentives in Texas. So I think the best thing for me to do is to write Modern Man, but make it a Texas border story. So Modern Man was really my ethnic background of the hero was he was a Palestinian Christian who lived in America post 9/11. And the kind of discrimination he faced. And but I think that it would be more timely to do a Mexican border story. So I do like Mexicans border stories, like Kevin Costner did a great one called Revenge. I don't know if you know that story. And so I kind of like that. I like Old Country, No Country for Old Men. I love that story. So I know the source materials. I know you know, the genres. And I think that's what I have to do. So it's a good question. Why not turn it into a feature? Yeah. But how many of you have made a short film and you just felt like you're exhausted and you're done with it? Anyone? Yeah, James here. You know, I kind of felt like I did that. I've done that. Let's go on. Let's do something else. And but it's not an uncommon story to have to do. My director, if you look him up, Alex Merkin. Maybe I'll put it in the type box. Alex Merkin. His first movie was called Across the Hall. It's a brilliant short movie. Brilliant. He was a student and he did this movie and he had some good luck. He had, I forget who the actor was in Entourage. Can anyone help me? Who's the boy actor in Entourage? Anyone? The handsome one, the successful one, that, and all the rest were just hanging on. What was his name? Yes, Alex had the good for. He's got this great script called Across the Hall, and it's basically Adrian Grenier is on the phone in the bathtub. His best friend's talking to him, and he's saying, "My girlfriend is having an affair." And Adrian gets up and he goes, "I'll be right there. Where are you?" And he says, "I'm at this hotel in room such and such." Adrian jumps up. He's not at home. He opens up the door. He's in a hotel room and he's with his best friend's girlfriend. And across the hall is the jealous boyfriend. He's drunk and he's got a gun. It's a great story. They're just, it's a great, great movie. And he had the good fortune that Adrian Grenier wasn't famous yet. And so it was a short film and he got picked up by Sony. And this when Sony had telephones. And when in 2006, when you bought your cell phone, it had this movie on it because they believed they were going to have movies on TV, which is, there's some truth to that, right? There's some greater truth than that. No, it wasn't Jerry Ferrara, no. Okay, so Alex is telling me, you know, suck it up. He said when he finished Across the Hall and he got all these awards, he felt that he went to something to make the feature film. And he did make the feature film. He did make it. It unfortunately, he had another, this seemingly good luck. He had an actress, I think her name was Brittany something, and she died. Anyone can you help me with the names? But actress. Yes, Brittany Murphy. And the week they were going to premiere, Brittany Murphy died. Brittany Murphy was going to be his calling card and his opening feature success, but she died. And they felt it was wrong to try to exploit that, and it didn't come out for a year later. But what Alex's advice to me is, though, that screenwriters, there's hundreds of good screenwriters, and they don't want to talk to people that are screenwriters. They want to talk to screenwriters who have a credit, a production credit. And Alex's advice to me is, you write Modern Men, the feature version. I will get it produced. And then you can sell your other stuff. People will listen to a produced screenwriter. That's what they want. It's kind of like what Jeff had said about producing. You have to have some kind of numbers game, records game. That that's how distribution works. It's based on numbers and audience, having a clear sense of audience. With that being said, I'll ask a favor of you. If you go to Amazon Prime and you look up my film, I'm typing it in here, right? Right now, I've decided I want to have a record. I know how many festivals, how many awards, but how many people have viewed it on Amazon Prime, and how many people have written a 5-star review? I think I'm up to 131. So in the last year, I've been trying to do that. And I'm going to do another little campaign to try to get another 50 and more and just keep those numbers going. If you want to do me a favor and want to watch my short film to see what's successful, we shot it in 2.5 days. Yeah, shot it. Why did it get made? Because Alex Merkin said he really liked my writing. Okay. Now, when we talk about good fortune, based on the good script, I got a great lead actor, right, Jordi Villasuso, and then I got the director of photography, and then I got Alex Merkin on board, and then we really planned it. At film festivals, people say, "Oh, we shot it in 6 months. It took us 2 months of, and our plan was no, because you waste too much money setting up and tearing down, moving locations, feeding people, and continuity. We had it nailed. I mean, we had a production schedule. We probably spent 6 months planning and 2.5 days shooting. We were very fortunate. We used when I was in Vegas at a film festival, I met this guy, and he did locations. He was location scout, and he did the movie, a Nicolas Cage movie, Con Air. He did Con Air. So I met this guy in Vegas, and turned out you don't know what you don't know. But later, this guy said, "I'll do the locations for you." He got me this motel called Four Aces, and it was built. It was a movie set built for a movie called Identity. It was used in a lot of TV shoots. It was used in Breaking Bad and so forth. And so we used that one day. It was great to have a built set, because if you try to shoot in a motel room, they're really small. But this was the set. You would remove one of the walls, and it has a lot of flexibility. And then the second set, we needed the pawn shop. We actually used the pawn shop from Pulp Fiction. No one has ever shot there since Pulp Fiction. And we made a deal with the guy. We had to do it on Sunday. We had to be in and out. And we had to allow his granddaughter to be on set, to be part of a real movie. Of course you can. So, success got more success, and hard work brings you fortune. The last fortunate thing, if you watch my movie, we were all but having the sound done. And I was lucky, I was fortunate that I liked cello. I like cello a lot. And I found out that the cello player for Foxcatcher that won at Cannes Film Festival, the man who did it, Jacob Cohen, he was hitchhiking through Miami. He was planning to go through Miami to go to Louisiana. I wrote to him. And so I put him up in a hotel for the price of a hotel and $200. He went in the studio and played cello for us. The rest of the soundtrack was finished by a guy named Bobby Tuhori. Bobby Tuhori is one of the composers for Hans Zimmer. And how did we get him? He saw the cut and he liked it well enough. He said, "I'll do it for you," and he did it in 3 days. It's a beautiful soundtrack, and he did it for free. I shouldn't tell you that, but he didn't charge anything. What I did do is, after it was over, I told him, we raised some extra money, and I don't want to insult you, but I sent him a check for $1,500, and I thought that's a lot of money, but I said, consider it a tip. I know who you work for, and I really appreciate it. So a lot of good things came together, but everyone said they loved the writing. So you got to have a good script. You got to have a good script. But I think that it's possible. I've heard horror stories about production teams. I was very fortunate. We had some little disasters. I had to fire two people that I knew well. I had to fire them. And it was the right thing. The movie came out a lot better by getting rid of them. But it's unfortunate, those people don't talk to me anymore, but I guess they weren't that much of my friends. But it's not easy. It's not easy doing it. But the sacrifice was for the whole. You really need team players. You don't want anyone to hijack the whole project. And Jay, sometimes you have to fire those who are close. Yeah, I had to save the project. I had to save the project twice. But it turned out. The other disaster was, because we were in Los Angeles to shoot. It was actually cheaper to shoot than shoot in Miami. I'm from Miami. But it was cheaper to fly my people out there and put them in motels for 2 days than shoot in Miami. Go figure. But because there were certain union people, I forget what overtime is after 10 hours. And anyway, we were ready to shut down, and my director said that we need 1 more hour. So I had to pay, if everyone stayed, I had to pay everyone $65 an hour overtime. But it turned out okay, because I only did 2-day shoot, and we finished everything, and everyone left thinking it was a nice tip. So yes, Jay, there's some hard decisions to make a good production. So, a lot about my experience, but anyone would ask me questions or, I have a lot of experience with writing, and I've had some very good experience with, my one production. Oh, Jay, you saw the trailer. Yeah, you need a good trailer. You need a good trailer. I was hoping to do my screen sharing, but it doesn't work. But I wanted to show you, I've done everything possible to look like I'm produced. I have a company logo. My LLC is called Right Brain. Right brain, WRITE. And because right brains are in the right side of the brain, if you're left-handed, you use the right brain for creativity, right? So, right brain. And I get this great logo. I think, I worked with the graphic artists. And then when I worked in animation, we animated it. So I have a nice little logo. I wanted to show you my poster. For the poster for This Modern Man is Me is an outtake, but I have some other scripts and people say, do you have movie posters? Well, how can you do a movie poster if you haven't produced it yet? So the idea was, I've done some of those too, and I wanted to show you what they look like, but I used just a prop. Where's that? Hey, boys, Miles. Google, be good. I'm working here, okay? Sorry, we got dogs. So, if you make a poster to engage, my comedy that I wrote for the Farrelly Brothers called The Big Idea. And so it's got a black cover, and I took a very stylized, neo-noir, stylized picture of a payphone with a piece of gum on it. That's the opening scene. The opening scene is our hero is a germophobic, and he answers the phone, and he puts it to his ear. When he pulls it out, the gum is stuck to his ear, and he's a germophobic, and it leads to the idea of his big idea. The big idea is the telephone condom. He invents a giant condom that goes over telephones, which I still think is appropriate. I think it's a good story for the pandemic. A germophobic, the lengths that it's not so funny anymore, but it is serious funny, I think. But yeah, it's just a black cover, white letters, The Big Idea, and a telephone with a piece of gum on it, the earpiece. So I just used a prop, and I shot it like this. I mixed my genre. I did slapstick in the Farrelly Brothers fashion, but I wrote it like a neo-noir. So when I shot the picture, I guess you guys know better that, the neo-noir look is the way you use the backlighting and use blue filters. So and everyone says, yeah. I mean, people say, oh, it looks neo-noir. I said, really? I like the way you're thinking. I manipulate people, show rather than tell them. Oh, it's pretty funny, like that. I get it, that big piece of gum on the phone that's going to get in someone's ear. Yeah, I like the way you're thinking. You know what? I believe that your writing should be suggestive. Let's see, David. Yeah, the big idea is really, I think, my COVID idea. I'm disabled, and I wanted to write a lead role for a guy in a wheelchair. And most people say, hey, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I didn't really want to do that unless it was good. But we don't laugh at the guy in the wheelchair because he's in a wheelchair. We're laughing because of germophobic, the extent that he's really paranoid. And one of the things that he does is, one of his gags is, or one of the gags in the stories, he has a picture of himself standing up, and he has it folded in a way that he can prop it into his car seat. So he doesn't have security in his car, but he has this paper, full-size image of him sitting behind the wheel. And so he's always using that, and I just think it's kind of funny. People, I still don't think of myself in a wheelchair. I still see myself standing up. So that was one of the gags. And so how can you write a part that we're not laughing at the person, but we're not laughing at him for his disability. We're laughing at him because his human condition, it's human nature. So I got that one. And Jay, you asked what else. I did another one. I told you I worked for the Port Authority of New York in the World Trade Center. I worked there. I was a writer for their newsletter. And I was fascinated because the majority of them are salvagers. And when they'd sit around drinking, they talk about all these jobs they've done and about salvaging. And so I wanted to write a salvage story. But I wanted to write a story about the Caribbean. I think it's photogenic. And so I wrote a story about called Lost Cause. It's about a lost nuclear bomb. So I researched. I know a lot about lost nuclear bombs. I know the United States has lost over 90 of them. But I chose one of them. The United States lost a nuclear bomb in 6 to 12 feet of water in the Savannah River, and they never found it. I'm fascinated by the idea. I'm thinking, what if? What if somebody did find it, and what kind of person could find it, and what would they do with it? So that's my story, Lost Cause. I like I like all kinds of genres, Jay, but people have told me to, some people want me just to focus on one. Any other questions? Film festivals. The first thing I'll tell you about my first excitement was going to a big festival, and but then realizing that I didn't meet agents and directors and producers. I just met other screenwriters. So my advice would be, the real advice when you go to a film festival is try to network, or if not, like if you go to Los Angeles, you research and you write letters to these people. I mean, basically, you just say, I'm a nominee, I'm a screenwriter, I'm up for a nomination at this festival, and I'll have some time, and I'd like to be able to come in and pitch. I wrote 36 of those letters the last time, and I got 5 acceptances, which was one a day while I was there. But in many cases, like Dimension Film, they took me to lunch for 2 hours. Warner Brothers, they brought me in, gave me a tour, and I had my shots. So I would say festivals. Next week is I'm nominated for some awards in Texas at a film festival. I wanted to go to it, and the reason is because I want Modern Man to be a Texas story now. I want to research it, get a feel for it, and maybe meet some people that could help me promote that project. The film festivals, yeah. Unfortunately, the film festivals don't always tell you. Like the Beverly Hills Film Festival, it's huge. They have like 2,500 writers, and you're a quarter finalist. You're all excited to find out there's 2,500 quarter finalists. And so I went once, and then for Modern Man, I submitted it, and it was expensive, so I didn't go. I don't know. I wish they had told me to come, because it was a black tie affair. I did give some tickets to my friends in Los Angeles. I won. I won they call it, not the Palme d'Or, but they call it the Golden Palm. That's what Hollywood calls their top award, the Golden Palm Award. And Jon Voight gave the award. I should have been there. But they don't tell you this. I know they want the suspense, but if I knew I was going to win this at a black tie affair and Jon Voight was going to give it, instead, they called my name, and one of my friends went, and a woman, and she said, he said, "You're not David Schroeder," and then that was the icebreaker, but it was okay. But I should have been there. I should have been there. So festivals, yeah, I think festivals are useful. I think it's a what would you call it? It's a palpable moment when you sit in a dark room and you're waiting for the response of the audience after they've seen your film. I've sat through many screenings. It's always interesting. I always know when there's going to be a little gasp. It's not uncommon in a big audience, in the dark, in a private moment, whether there's a scene where you see the hero's muscular back, and some woman will squeal. I always, there's just certain moments that they're going to respond to. It's great. It's a great thing. Yes, Jay, I got a lot of stories that I would tell, but I think that's the true thing. The love of story, the love of stories. I hope what really makes it work. I hope I answered your question, Anna, about festivals. You have to make the most of it. You have to go reach out and meet people, and maybe not the screenwriters. The most comfortable thing, you're going to go sit around, hang around with the other screenwriters. Find the directors, the producers, the actors. In my case, I've been successful I find that those people are seeking me out, which is a compliment. It is a compliment. It's complimentary to what you do, right? I don't need a screenwriter. I am a screenwriter. So, but the festivals, yeah, you want to be that networking. But geez, it's expensive too, right? You pick the ones. I pick the ones where I think I'm going to do well, to attend. I would have liked to have been at the Toronto. So James knows I've had some success with, I think, but with screenwriting with Toronto, your festival. But yeah, Toronto, that's one of those audiences that I would like to be. Thank you, James. Yeah, I did. I've had a bunch of scripts in there. And I like the Toronto vibe. I really do, and in the same sense being, I knew Modern Man would do well. There's a festival called Route 66. I think Route 66, that's cool. That's cool. I was going to win, and I did win there, and I kind of knew they would like it, but you can sometimes sense where you should place your film and where not. I'll leave you with this idea. I have been far more successful in just about anywhere in the world except from Miami. I'm from Miami. This expression, never a prophet in your own land. I don't know. I can't crack the Miami audience. I write for Miami grants, for screenwriting, and I know the other projects, and I wouldn't even get recognized. I haven't cracked the Miami code. I guess I don't play the game. I've been ostracized from Miami because I made Modern Man in LA. I was going to make it in Miami, but it was impossible because it was the wrong place, first of all, and there were the wrong people. And they wanted way too much money. They had this sense of grandeur, and I did much better but yeah, I've been ostracized because I was also criticized that my first film didn't have disabled people in it. I don't know what the rule is, but because I'm disabled, I'm supposed to have disabled people in. But I did. What they don't know is that my movie, that myself and 4 other wheelchair people, we did the production. We raised all the money. So, what I was saying is to be in the film business, just as important to be a producer as be in front of the camera. So when I was criticized for it, I said, yeah, but I hired 4 other people that have disabilities. There shouldn't be any rules, James. I'm with you, James. I think I'm a great corrupter of rules, but I know my rules and I know when to break them. And I think like Martin Luther King, when you disobey, you do it knowingly and you do it lovingly. Don't do it with anger. You do it knowingly and lovingly. I know the rules that I break, and I'm smiling while I do it. Yeah, James. James, I also will say, in the academic world, commercial art is a bad word. And I think it's a perfect word. It's the perfect word. No one wants to be a poor, starving artist. You want to be the best artist and make money too. You want to be Michael Jackson. You want to be the Beatles. It's possible when art and audience meet. And it's kind of like everything I say is the opposite. I tell my students, like, you know, I ask my colleagues, what makes story? They say conflict, conflict. I said, no, that's wrong. Nobody likes a troublemaker. The answer is the story has to have conflict resolution, because you want unbearable conflict and then you want this brilliant resolution, dig us out of the ditch. So it's like I said before, if you want to tell a story of despair, then you also have to have hope. It's a story of hope versus despair. Yeah, I think you're right, James. I think that, especially when it comes to budgets, especially when it comes to experimentation, especially when it comes to length, you know, I think um, I think also that the film festival really recognizes a kind of economy of art, if I can say that. You know, like I've been at film festivals and I cringe when I see a bad movie and the guy will say, "Oh, I spent $250,000 just on the special effects for this horror movie," and I'm thinking, wasted money. But on the other hand, you know, other people with no budget can create real horror. That I like that. I'm the son of an engineer. Anyone can make a $500 hammer. You know, the military wants a $500 toilet seat. Come on, you know, I want the best for less. James, have you ever heard the term? I like this one. When it comes to production, my director of photography always says, "Fast, cheap, and good. Pick two." Fast, cheap, and good. Pick two. That makes sense. But I think in the film festival, if you can do all three, you're brilliant. Fast, good, and cheap. You know, I think really as a filmmaker, you want to be able to resolve things. You want to say, all right, we got a low budget, but how do we do it fast, good, with this amount of money and make it look? Because I think Jeff said that everyone lies at the film festival and say how much money it costs to make their movie. My mentors, you know, I look at Tom Muska's done some movies recently for HBO. And I'll say, "Tom, how much did you pay to make that movie?" He won't tell me. He said, "How much does it look like?" And I'll say, "It looks like $2 million." And he goes, "It was $2 million." I know he's lying. I know what deals he got and stuff. But, you know, if it can look like $1 million, that's what you say. Hopefully you can do it for a couple 100,000. Yeah. James, what are you saying about Jeff? Film distribution? I will admit I'm not good with film distribution. What happened was a couple of things that I didn't anticipate what you do at the end. When I was at the end, I'm going to do marketing. I wanted the domain, thismodernmanisbeat.com. And when I went to buy it, it was gone. And why was it gone? Because one of the people in production bought it and wanted to sell it to me for a couple $100. I didn't see that coming. So I abandoned that. Distribution. I went to go put it on Amazon. I will tell you, I don't make any money on Amazon. You're supposed to make 50% of the $2.99 for the viewing. But, so I went there and I said, and they go, "No, you don't own the film." I said, "What do you mean I don't own it?" And they want me to hire a lawyer. Someone, and I think from a film festival, stole the hard drive and they posted it on Facebook. Someone I don't know, and I've researched. I think I know who it is, but a lawyer told me, well, you can sue them. It'll cost you $10,000 to sue them. Will you feel better? Because you're never going to get the money back. And he says, or just let it ride. So I'm letting it ride. It's a petty theft. You know, the guy has made hundreds of dollars from me. Yeah. So yeah, I could have used Jeff's discussion. You know, I should have had a lawyer for agreement before. I should have had the domain name locked down. I should have been getting the small residuals from Amazon, but I didn't do that. So yeah, I'm not the guy to go to be successful with the money. I hope I will be, though. Anyone else have a question or comment? Anyone? It wasn't. I didn't know what to expect from the audience, but I think it came out. The direction that I'm following seemed to be good. Yeah, thank you, Jay. I appreciate that feedback. It's hard to do from this distant learning kind of idea. You know, if anyone has any suggestions for me, I'd be happy to have them as well. I could. I'll post my email. Maybe I'll put it here in case you want to contact me, or if you got any ideas, or if you watch Modern Man and you please do a review for me, that would be great. You know, you just have to write 2 or 3 or 4 sentences, and it's maybe it's what saying you gotta have some numbers, you gotta have following, right? What are the numbers? It's kind of like what I was saying about we know about Rush Limbaugh was in the news, and one of my friends made a lot of money with the ratings for him since 1980s. But he said the people that loved him listened to him 3 hours a day. The people that hated him listened to him 4 hours a day. And it didn't matter what the message was. Everyone listened to what he was going to say next. You know, what do you got? That's what they always ask. What do you got next? And he always had it. He always fulfilled that and was successful. But yeah, I got to get reviews out there. I don't even know if bad reviews are bad. No reviews is indifference, and then nobody cares. Thank you, James. That was feedback. If anyone's got some ideas, what they think that the sequel will be, I have some ideas that no one's guessed. You know, people are always guessing what it should be, and I think I will go well beyond that. But if you got ideas, maybe it'll keep in the back of my mind. My dogs are snoring. I hope it's not because of my lecture. Anyone? Anyone like to ask a question? Or it's been a long festival weekend. I'm sure James is tired. Anyone? All right, James. You want? I see we got quite a few participants. Some people. Okay, James will collect any of that feedback. And thank you, James. Thanks to the Toronto International Film Awards. And congratulations to those that won. And those that haven't, you know, you're a winner in other ways. You know, the real prize is down the line. Okay. All right, the best. And I appreciate your patience with me. Okay.